Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be exploring the basics of the UEnum. I've noticed a lot of UEnum uh, tutorials out there on how to set up or start an enum, and they're pretty good. I've seen some really great ones, but there's some stuff like the actual application of it that doesn't seem as readily available. So I created this tutorial to do kind of a mid-level dive into the UEnum. So for today, what our objectives are going to be is we're going to create a blueprint UEnum, and then we're going to look at that and see the different parts and pieces that make it up. And then we're going to create the same thing or something similar to it in C++. Then once we've created that, we're going to make a switch on our enum. We're not going to delve into the blueprint side of that because there is a switch on enum available in blueprints that's pretty handy. But as far as C++, we'll do a switch statement for that and get that set up. And then once we have that, we're going to do some other fun things with our UEnum. We're going to get a random enumerator. So like the idea there would be if you had item qualities, that's the example we use, where we can pull a random enumerator out, so we could end up getting a random item quality, which would be handy in like item drops and things like that in games. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to compare a couple of EUnums, or compare a couple of enumerators. And we're not going to do a lot with that. We're going to set it up, and I'm basically going to give you a little bit of a framework that you can play with, so you can kind of like on your own see how one enumerator would compare to another enumerator. And then after that, we are going to access a TArray using an enumerator. And so with that, we're going to take our enumerator, and then we're going to use that to index our TArray. So if any of that sounds exciting to you, keep hanging in with me. The next thing we should go over is the project details. So the project details for this one, getting yourself started, is doing this in 5.1 for my engine version. And then we're going to do a blank project for our template in C++ with no starter content. All right, let's get started. All right, here we are in the editor. I've already pre-set up my project just a little bit. The only two things we're really going to need to do this tutorial are going to be, we're going to need a game mode and a player controller. And we're going to be driving those through C++. So if you need to, go ahead and pause the video and create those classes, and then create their blueprint equivalents. And also I would suggest going into your project settings and your maps and modes and setting your blueprint to your game mode base that you created. So once you've got that done, go ahead and unpause the video and we'll continue on. Now that we have that done, the first thing that we're going to do is we're actually going to do the blueprint creation of an enum. And we're going to do that real quickly. It's not going to take very long. If you're, mostly gearing towards the C++, this is also going to be kind of good to see how it's going to look in the editor. So that's what we're doing. So all you got to do is in your content browser, just go ahead and right click wherever you want your new enum to be. Go to blueprints and enumeration, give her a name. So we're going to say like thing type. All right. And then to modify it, you just double click on it. And then here is our enumerator or enumeration enum. To add a new enumerator, what we do is we click here for add a new enumerator. So we're going to do a real quick one. So this is the thing 01. I'm going to go ahead and add like 3 of them. So I got thing 02 and thing 03. Give it a description for the enum. So this is a thing enum. Okay, so the next thing you have over here is the description. So we're going to give this some values as well. This is a thing. 01. Just copy that. Like I said, this isn't terribly complicated, but it does help to understand what our settings are in C++ to do it this way as well. All right, save. And there you go. This is all set up. It's got a description for the enum itself, and then a display name and a description. Okay, now that we have that, we can go into our player controller. Go ahead and open up the editor. And then we're going to create a new variable based off of that enum. So we're going to click here, and we're going to click, we're going to type in e-thing. So e-thing type, boom. All right. And then we'll just name this. All right. And then the easiest way to see this, actually just go ahead and pull it in and get a setter. Now that we have a setter, we can see what most of those values are. So you'll see the display name here is the thing 1, 2, and 3. That's where we got it. And then if you hover over it, it says, this is a thing 1, 2, and 3. That's going to be the description of the actual enumerator itself. So that's what those settings are. So here's the description. We show that again. Same thing with the display name. Then also, since we have this in Blueprint, you'll notice here it says this is an thing enum. That is the enum description. We really don't make one of those in Blueprints or C++. That's mostly something that would be in, like your regular commenting. It would get pulled in that way. So that is how you set up a enum in Blueprints. It's super fast, super simple. All right, we'll save everything here. All right, and then we're going to go ahead and go into our Visual Studio for the rest of this. Okay, now that we have made a enum in Blueprints, now we're going to make one in C++. So when you're making an enum in C++, it's like creating a new class. Anything else C++, it's a structure or an enum or whatnots. They're going to be outside of whatever class your file is in. So what we're going to do here is you go above. In this case, we're going to be using our player controller.h, and we're going to put it there. So you can put them in other places. Some people will use a mass file or a utilities file for all their enums. There's just a lot of options. I'm not going to go too much into that. We're just looking at the functionality of the UEnum in the first place. So we're going to put it in here. We're going to say UEnum. And I've mentioned it before, but I use ReSharper, so it does some autocomplete type stuff for me, which is pretty handy. That being said, ReSharper signature for this isn't quite right. So in order to do it correctly, according to the documentation, I need to do enum, then class, and then the name of the enum. And whatever you name your enum, it has to start with an E, or else the build tool won't like it. So what we're going to do for this is we're going to do E, and we're going to go quality. And then it's going to derive from UInt8. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and make this a blueprint type. So that way we can use it in blueprints. All right, the next thing we need to do is actually make our enumerators now that we have our enum class. So the first thing that you add is the internal enumerator. So okay, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do the first one, and then I'm going to copy and paste from my existing file to save us some time on the recording. So I've got Vilo, which is going to be how C++ is going to look at our different enumerators. So you'll notice it's got a value of 0 because it basically equates it to that UInt8. Okay, and then we're going to have a UMeta. And then, so we're going to do a display name. That's going to be equal. It's going to be a string. And I'm going to call this very low. And then we're also going to want a tooltip. Say very low. Okay. So just to go over what these different parts are. So obviously this is, the enum that we've declared. That's the actual internal structure of it. And then this is the UMeta wrapper. So this is the display name. So like when we get a drop down in the editor, it's going to say this. And then the tooltip is what's going to be hovered over when we're hovering over a specific tooltip. Just like we had the enumerations description is going to be the tooltip. That is the equivalent there. Now that I've got that in, I'm going to add a couple of more from my test project or my prep project. I usually do this once before I start recording, so I'm just going to pull in some of that, save us some time. Okay, so it's basically the same. I usually like to line up my meta tags. That's a personal preference thing. The next thing I'm going to add is a max value. Now, I believe that the max will get picked up by the build tool, and then it won't be visible in the editor alone without adding any UMetas to it. But I am going to add the metas. I'm going to add the UMeta specifier there for hidden. So some people I've seen have used count or max value or whatever works for them. This will ensure that in the editor, when we pull the drop down, we don't get max. We're going to use that internally. And as we get further with this, you'll see that in practice. So like I said, the first thing we want to do was just build one, right? Okay, so now we have one. Let's go see it in Unreal. So I'm going to load without debugging, or build without debugging. Run, I don't know. Buttons, words. Okay. And then we should be able to go into our controller now. And we could create one of those variables. So we basically go down here, create a new variable, and we'll go equality. Yeah, there it is. Equality type. Boom. And then we'll go ahead and we'll name the variable. So we're going to go BP quality. We'll say item quality, I guess. Doesn't really matter what we name this. We're just using this to look at it real quick. And then we can grab our setter, the same way we did before, so we can see it. You'll notice now that you've got your very low, low, mid, just like we wrote them. And then also, if you look, hover over them, you'll get that description from the tooltip. So there you go. That is creating a enum in C++. Now that we've created one, we're going to want to do some stuff with it. So we're going to go ahead and close the editor back down. Exit. Oops, save all. All right. And then we're going to do some stuff. Okay, so the first thing we're going to need is we're going to need a variable that we can play with. So we're going to go ahead and put that right here in a public section in our .h. We're going to set up a variable. So property, and we're going to make it edit anywhere. And we're going to make it blueprint read write because we just want this nice and open so we can do whatever we want with it. All right, and we're going to do category, and then we'll call this enum test. Okay, and we are going to do an equality type, and we're going to name it item quality. And then we're going to go ahead and give that a default value. So we're going to say equality, and we're going to set its, I don't know, it's mid or its default value. All right. Now that we've done that, we are going to want to display whatever is in this. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to actually display it as an on-screen message. And in order to do that, we're going to want to do a switch. And that's kind of part of one of the things that we need to learn about. So it's a good opportunity to do both at the same time. So we're going to go a U function. And we're going to make this executable. So that way we can call that command with console commands. And then we're going to say void, because we don't need to return anything. And we're going to say display item quality. All right. And then we're going to go ahead and generate a definition. So that'll be over in our CPP file. And then we're going to do our switch. Let me pull up my example. There we go. All right. So now for this, we got to do a simple switch statement. If you were doing it in blueprints, there is actually a switch on enum function. We're not going to go over that. It's pretty easy and self-explanatory. If I have requests in the comments, I can tack something on, but I don't think that's generally necessary. So we are focusing on the C++. So we're going to do switch. If you can spell it correctly, it helps. All right. And then here, so you've got switch, which says it's going to be a switch. And then in here, we got to have our expression. So for us, it's going to be our variable. It's going to be item quality. All right. And then get some braces there for our switch statement. And then we're going to start adding our cases. Essentially, a case is going to be each different option that we're going to run. So case, then we're going to say E quality, and we're going to start at very low. I prefer to start at the lowest value and work my way down and not skip around. I think it'll, as far as I know, it'll still work if you skip around, but I just think that's bad form, essentially. And it's harder to read. So each case needs, at a minimum, you're going to need a break statement. So that way, once it's done with the case, it pops out of the switch. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to add a debug message, and I'm actually going to copy my debug message over from my example project and then just drop it right in here because it's all, ready to set. So if you have never done an on-screen message, it's pretty easy. G-engine, add debug message, and you're going to have your key here, which is going to be the kind of how to layer things. -1 is fine. The time that's going to display an F color for its color, and then an F string for what you want in there with a printf. So pretty easy. That's what I've got in there. So I've got, very low. So I'm just going to spit that out. All right. And then you're going to want to work your way through each of the quality levels. So case. So I'm going to do my cases and just, drag over the code that I already have, which is going to be the same thing here, except the text will be different. So we'll go ahead and add these in here. Switch statements are cool, but at the same time, they can get kind of ugly when you start getting to a really large amount of cases. Just something to be aware of. So essentially, it's like a big if-else statement that just kind of keeps on going. Or if-else if, actually. No, I didn't want max. I wanted very high. There's very high. And then finally, you're going to want your default case. I would highly suggest keeping a default case in pretty much everything you do whenever you do a switch. What a default is going to do is it's going to catch anything that isn't included in here. So if I like say for example, like we add another value to this and then we try to like, push this in here, right? Well, it doesn't have anything in here. It's going to keep looking for it, or it's going to display like the top one. And so what we're going to want to do is with the default, it's going to say, okay, I got something that's not one of these cases. I'm going to do this instead. And so what I'm doing here is I'm just breaking out. I'm just saying, okay, we're done with the switch. Don't worry about it. Just move on. You can have logging. You can do, it's, situationally dictated. You can do whatever you want in there. So there we go. That is a switch statement, and it's switching on our enumeration. So now that we've got that, we can go ahead and test that out. So we'll go ahead and hit debug, and we'll hit start without debugging. We'll let that load up, and we will test it out. Okay. Now we can look here again in our enum class. You'll see over here we have our enum test. It's set to mid. So then we can go over and we can hit play. Go ahead and hit tilde, which is the wavy line under the escape key. And then we say display item quality. See, it says it's a mid. And then we can go back, and if we want, we can change this variable to something else to test it out. Switch to high. Play again. Tilde. Display item quality. See, and now it's set to high. So that works. Our switch statement's great. It's doing its job. Now, the next thing we are going to do is we're going to get a random number, and we are going to set our enumerator to a random option. So like, in other words, like, this would be good for, getting loot drops and things like that. So we get a random quality. Okay, so that's what we are going to do next. So we're going to do that in Visual Studio. So we'll go ahead and close our editor back down. And we are going to go over here, and we're going to create another view function. And we're going to make that executable as well. And then it is also going to be a void. And we're going to say set random item quality. And we'll go ahead and create a definition for that. All right. So we got we can go ahead and create the item quality. Okay, so this one we're going to do a little finagling here. Okay. So what we need in order to get a random number, we want a random in range. So that's needs a minimum and a maximum values that it can go to. So what we're going to do is we're going to say uint 8, because remember that's what our switch is, or enum is working off of. So we're going to say make this one min. So it's going to be our minimum value. And what we can do is we can go equality type colon, and then we want our lowest value. So it's going to be very low in this case. And then we're going to do a static cast. So depending on what your autocomplete allows you to do with your IDE setup, mine will let me just go ahead and hit static cast. I'll put it in there. But the big key here is what you want to do is go from your equality or your equality type very low to a UN8. So that way you can store it in here for your minimum value. And then we're going to do the same thing for the max. Buttons. Max. That's going to be equal to equality type. And if you haven't guessed, that's what our max value is for. And then we're going to do a static cast on that. And we want to subtract 1 from that, because its value is going to be 1 higher than the maximum actual usable value. Okay. Now, by using the max, what that allows us to do is if we go back in here and we add something in here, it will automatically make accommodations for that if we add additional enumerators. So excluding if we removed or moved the bottom one, the lowest one, we'd be fine. So, or we will be fine. So we can add 2. Now the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get a random int within that range from the min to the max. So it's another uint 8. I'm just going to call it rand int. And then we're going to grab our fmath. Oops, I need equals. So equals fmath colon rand in range, or rand range, r in range, rand range. I don't know. Rand range. Yeah, that's right. So, and then it takes in the minimum and the maximum. And then yeah, should be good. Okay. And then that should work out. And then the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna then set that item quality to our new value. So we're gonna say item. Man, I just can't spell today. I'm sorry, guys. All right, and then we're gonna go ahead and set this to let's see here. Ran int, and then we're gonna do another static cast on that. And this, like I said, my autocomplete's pretty awesome with this. So if yours doesn't do that, basically what we're doing up here is we're casting our enumerator into a uint 8, and then here we're taking a uint 8 and then we're casting it into our enumerators. That way we can set our enumerator variable. So now that that's set with a random value, we're going to want to see what that value is. So we're going to go ahead and call our display item quality, and then it'll display it just like we did before. All right, let's give this a whirl and see if this works. We'll hit debug and start without debugging. Okay, so the first thing we're going to want to do here is we're just going to verify what our item quality is. We left it at high, so that's where it is. We can hit play in the editor again, and then we get tilde, and then set random item quality. So it looks like we got very low on that one. Say set random item quality. That's mid. You can do it as many times as you want. Set random item quality. Boom, very low. So as you can see, it's given us a random output there. So that's pretty handy. You can use that for, like I said, item drops and things of that nature. It's pretty good. So now that we've done that, we want to push a little bit further. Let's look at the way that enums are compared between each other. So we're going to go ahead and we'll exit out of the editor again. And for this one, we'll need a couple of variables to compare. So what we can do is we can actually copy our item quality, and we can paste that, and then we'll just rename this to item A, and then we'll copy that, and we will paste it, and we will name that item B. Fancy how that works. Okay, so now that, and we have those, and they're the same quality levels, so keep that in mind. We'll be able to change them in the engine as well. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to need another U function, so that way we can test that out and see what that looks like. So we're going to make another U function, making it executable, so we can call it via console commands, and we're going to name this one compare item quality AB. Okay. On their own, these functions aren't super helpful, but the logic behind them is meant for you to be able to incorporate this in other code that you're using. So just as a heads up, and this might be something that you can hang on to as a file for reference. It's kind of the idea. Okay, so for this one, what I'm going to do, because most of this code isn't specific to the enum, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to copy over my code from my existing project. I will explain it, and then we'll be able to go ahead and hum it up. Okay, so what we have here is I have three flags, one for if it's equal, one for if A is greater than B, and one if A is greater or equal to B. And then I'm doing over here a one-liner so I can set it. So basically I'm going, item A is equal to item B. If it's true, it's going to be true. If it's false, it's false. And then I'm doing something similar over here in the UE log, because if I just dump in true or false into the variable, it'll end up being 1 or a 0. So there you go. I'll leave this up for a second if you want to be able to see this. As you can see, these are like your standard comparisons. So, you should be able to handle that. If you need to pause it, now's the time to pause it. We're going to go back to the editor now. So start without debugging. Okay, so now in this one, we know they're both going to be equal already, because that's what we had them set to. So we can hit play. We hit tilde, compare AB, and then that'll spit out our values. Now, obviously, they are equal, so both the first statement for the equal is true, and then the greater or equal is also true. Now, if we change the values, then that would change our output. Basically, putting that in there, I mostly wanted to give you the opportunity to be able to play with that on your own and just give you a framework to work from, because you can take in here and you can set up any of your comparisons and test them out and see where they fit. But that's basically how it's going to work. In the grand scheme of things, where it's comparing is going to be off of the actual value. So if you look again, it starts at 0 and then it goes to whatever the higher value is. So that's the number it's comparing. So like low would be less than mid, and mid would be greater than low, and so on and so forth. So that's basically what's comparing on. Okay, so now that we have that done, the next cool thing that we can do with this is we can actually use an enum to iterate an array, or in this case, to specifically get a value from an array. Okay, so what we can do is we're going to set up an array, a TArray, and we're going to do the same thing. And I'm just going to go ahead and copy the property here, paste that there, and then we're going to do a TArray. So, and we're going to make a TArray of floats. And then, let's see here, double check, make sure what I named it in my original one. All right. And then we're going to call it quality mods. Okay, quality mods. And then we're going to make that equal, and we're going to go ahead and hard code its values. Give it some braces. All right, and we're going to do 02F, 4F, 6F, and then let's see here, 8F, and 1 point. There we go. And so what that's going to give us is that's going to give us an array with 5 entries, just like we have an enum with 5 entries that are usable. Okay. So then what we're going to do, now that we have this set up, is we're going to create a function that's going to go ahead and log those qualities. And the idea here is you would be able to have your TArray. So like, for example, in this case, we're using, a quality type for an item, right? Well, that quality type might have some sort of modifier on some, option with it. So we could actually set our modifiers here and then call them based on our quality. So like, we know this is a very low quality sword. It's only going to get a 20% bonus to its damage rather than 100% bonus at like epic or whatever. So this would be a way of pulling that data. So then what we could do is we've got our array, and then we just, call it. So we're gonna do it in the U function. Hit executable. And then same thing, we're gonna do a void, and we're gonna do log. Let's see here, log quality mod, and then we'll do item. Like I said, these aren't terribly useful in themselves, but you can take the logic and then apply that, make it do stuff, cool stuff. Pull up my. So for this one, super easy. We're going to make a float. Call it modifier, just mod. And then we're going to make this equal to quality mods. And then we're going to want, let's see here. We're going to want to get a specific element in there. And then we're going to do item A. And then we'll do a static cast. And then this is the same thing as before, but this time we want it as a UN8. Okay, so we got a UN8. So that's going to set our mod float to whatever that corresponding value is. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and log it. I'm going to do the same thing I've done before. So I'm just going to pull my log that I already did out. If you've done the logging tutorial, it's, you know, all that stuff is in there if you want to deep dive into that. So anyway, here we go. If you need to pause it, go ahead and pause it now. I'm going to debug and start, or start without debugging, actually. So let's go ahead and see what we get here. We'll hit tilde, and we'll say log. What did I name that? Mod. Look, what did we name it? Log quality mod. Okay, log quality mod. There you go. So that item A is at 0.6. So we could also run our random item quality to change our item quality to something random. It's going to give us a high, so that should be like, I think 0.80 or 0.8. So then we can go in here and we can log quality mod A. It's high 60. It must be, because there's high, then very high. Yeah, that would be 60. So let's set it something else again. Set random quality. So now it's a mid, so it should change this time. Okay, so then we're gonna say log quality mod A. See, now is it not set in item A? Oh, you know what we did? Haha, that's funny. All right, so I'll exit this and I will show it again, and this time I will fix the code. So over here, if you'll notice, we are setting that is item A, and up here we're doing item quality. So let's do this with item quality. And then now it'll work correctly. So we go ahead and hit debug and start without debugging. Try again. You know how it goes. All right, now let's give her another whirl. All right, so we're gonna say, let's do display item quality. So that way we know what it is right now. It's set at high, and then we'll go log quality item A. So it's 88%, and we still haven't called item A and all that other stuff, but whatever. And then let's see, let's random item. Oh, set random item quality. Okay, so now we're very high. Let me say log. So there you go. it's at very high, and then it gives us 100% bonus. So that gives you a basic idea. Some of the things that we can do with an UEnum, there are other things that you can do, but those are kind of like the major basics. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy the video, I'm planning on doing more of these sort of tutorials where I'm like kind of diving into one specific piece. I'm going to do data types for a little while, so I'll probably do like a ustruct next or something along those lines. Um, anyway, thanks for watching. Feel free to leave comments in the bottom if you have questions, concerns, ideas. Do all the YouTubey stuff, like and subscribe, and I hope you have a great afternoon.